For this section, we are going to be talking about some shortcuts on how to determine if two triangles are congruent. So in the last section, we talked about how to prove that two figures are congruent meant that all the sides and all of the angles, so all the corresponding parts, needed to be congruent to one another. So if we're talking triangles, that would mean you'd have 3 corresponding angles and 3 corresponding sides, so 6 total pieces that you would need to prove were congruent. However, there's a couple shortcuts using only 3 steps that will also prove the triangles are congruent and will force those other pieces to be equal as well. So these are the 5 that we're going to talk about in this video. So the first one is called side, 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 meaning if you have 3 pairs of sides, so we've got AB is congruent to DE, so that's our first pair. So if those two are congruent to each other, and then we have a second pair, so AC and DE that are congruent to each other. And then we also see the third pair of sides, so CB is congruent to FE. So if you ever see that all 3 sets of sides are congruent, that automatically means that the two triangles are congruent to one another. And so we would write a triangle congruence statement using the letters. When you write the first triangle, you can write it in whatever order you want. So I'm going to do ABC because I like to do alphabetical for the first triangle. Then when you write the second triangle, you need to go in the same order. So we went A, B, C, which followed the 1 tick mark to the 3 tick mark side, and then finalized, like closed up on the 2 tick mark side. So we're going to follow the 1 tick mark side and then the 3 tick mark side, and that's going to have us going DEF. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So you want to make sure you follow those markings. So the second way is if we have 2 sides and then the included angle, okay? So the included angle. So this angle has to be between the 2 sides. So as we see these sides, so I see AB here is congruent to DF, and then I also see that AC is congruent to DE. So these are the 2 sides right here that are congruent. If the angle that's created by those sides is also congruent, okay, then these 2 triangles are congruent to each other. It has to be the included angle. It can't be one of these outside angles. So it has to be the angle between the 2 sides. If it's like this, that's not an included angle, okay? So this does not count. It has to be the included angle. So we saw AB was congruent to DF. We saw AC was congruent to DE. And then we also saw that the angle A was congruent to angle D was the included angle. This is angle side angle. So then again, we can write the congruence statement, write the first triangle in alphabetical order if you want to. You can do whatever you want, but triangle ABC for this one. And then, so ABC, so we went on the 1 tick, the side with 1 mark to no marks to 2. So none to none, or sorry, 1 to none to 2. So if I follow this one, I'm going to go 1 to none to 2 to follow the order for the letters. So triangle DFE for this one. Did I do that? Oh, no, okay, EF. All right, so then in this one is angle, side angle. So this time you'll notice that the side is between the angle. So this has to be an included side. So the side needs to be between the 2 angles that you see. So if you have 2 angles, so we notice we have this angle A is congruent to D. And then we also have that B is congruent to F. So then we need to look at the side and see if the side is between them. So we have this angle and this angle. The side is between those 2. And then same with this one, the side is between them. Unlike if it was a picture like this, if you had this angle and maybe you had this side, that's not the included side. Okay, so if we have the 2 angles and the side between them, this is angle, side, angle, or ASA. So again, we can write out the triangle congruent statement. So triangle ABC is congruent to what triangle? Make sure you follow the right order. So I always look at what I have 2 of marked up. So it's been 2 sides before, now it's 2 angles. So I'm going to follow angle A, B, C. So this has 1 arc mark to 2 arc marks to none. So 1 arc mark is D, 2 arc marks is F, none is E. So this is congruent to triangle DFE. And that's angle side angle, or ASA. So then we also can do 2 angles and the non-included side. Okay, so non-included side this time. So the side that is not between the 2 angles. So if we look at the angles given to us, we have angle A is congruent to angle D. Angle B is congruent to angle F. And then when we look at the angle, when we look at the side, so now we have angle A and angle B. This would be the side between them, but we have this side. Okay, so this side is not between them. So AC congruent to DE is the non-included side. So that makes it angle, angle, side. The S is not between the A's. So that's how you're writing these out. So this is angle, angle, side. So again, writing the statement. So triangle ABC is congruent to what triangle? So following along here, so A, B, C, I'm going to follow the angle since there's 2 of them. So we went angle A to angle B to angle C. So 1 arc to 2 to none. So 1 arc to 2 to none is going to be DFE. Then the third and final way to do of shortcuts is only for right triangles. So one thing I'm going to tell you, so we've had 2 angles, right? And so we had 2 angles, and then in one case we had the S in between. And in the other case, so let me write this so I can move this S around. So we had the S in between, and then the other one we had the S outside, right? So we had angle side angle with the included side. We had angle angle side with the non-included side. Then the other option that we had was 2 sides. So we had side angle side, and that was if the angle was between the 2 sides, right? So that was if we had something like this and we had 2 sides given and then the angle between it, right? Well, what happened if the angle wasn't between it? Okay, so what would happen if our angle was like this and not between it? So the angle is not between. Then we would have ASS, and that actually does not work. It's not just because it's a cuss word, okay? It's actually because it doesn't work to prove that the triangles are congruent. Okay, there's another one where this side would be the same length here, and it would create a whole different triangle. Okay, so angle side side does not work. So when you're looking at a triangle and you get 2 sides, so when we're looking here, we see side AB and side DE, and then we see side AC and we see side DF. So you have 2 sides here. And then where is the angle that's given? Okay, the angle that's given is outside of or not between these 2. So if you were going to write this down, you would maybe want to write that this is ASS. So if you ever get to that point where you're trying to write ASS on your paper, you say no, and you ask yourself, is the angle a right angle? Okay, so meaning it's got the box in here, right? And so in this case, it is. If the answer is yes, then these 2 triangles are congruent by what's called hypotenuse leg, okay, this HL, the hypotenuse and the leg of a right triangle. If the answer is no, then these triangles there is not enough information, NEI. Okay, so you would write NEI and you would say not enough information to prove that the 2 triangles are congruent. Okay, so this is 2 sides, and the non-included angle will give you HL as long as that angle is a right angle. So let me show you an example, just kind of 2 of these examples next to each other. So this one, Okay, so if we had something like this, which is what we had on the last screen, this would be two sides and the non-included angle. So you'd have two sides and the non-included angle, and then it is a right angle. So you would say these two triangles are congruent by HL. If it looked like this, whoops. Okay, and you had something like this, now you have two sides and the non-included angle again. Okay, so then you would say, is it a right angle? And this is not a right angle. So then you would say the triangles are not congruent, okay, because there is not enough information. Okay, so this is not enough information to determine if they are in fact congruent. So the two things that you can't have is all three angles. Okay, that was one that we didn't do. And then the angle side case or side angle. So whether you write ASS forward or backwards, it doesn't work. Okay, so no cussing forwards or backwards. If that happens, ask yourself if it's a right angle. If it's a right angle, HL. If it's not, then no. Okay, and then if you just get all of the angles given to you as congruent, then that is also not congruent triangles. So if you have something like this, okay, that would not be congruent triangles. Okay, so you don't know that those are congruent.